Never quit, never give up. Never quit, never give up. Never quit, never give up. I am an endurance athlete. I am trained to handle wind, rain, heat, difficult hilly courses, mechanical problems, nutritional problems, and mental breakdowns on the course. The words never quit, never give up are painted in the forks of my bike. Whether I'm running or riding and I feel like stopping, never quit, never give up is all I say to myself till that feeling passes. Hours and hours of repetition. This is my mantra. I'm at mile 26 of the marathon, and I have just completed the most difficult stretch of the course. The finish line is finally in sight. The temperature was perfect to run, the sky was blue, the clouds were white and wispy, and crowds of people line Boylston Street, cheering every runner to the finish line. Just ahead, there was a loud, powerful noise. Instantly, I knew something was wrong. It didn't sound right, it didn't feel right. As I was looking ahead, trying to figure out what could be happening, there was a massive second explosion directly to my left side. Instantly, the world changed forever. Just a moment ago, it was festive and beautiful, and now chaos. I was sprayed with debris that came from the gust of wind following the second explosion. The back of my legs and my shoes were bloody. Some of it was mine, some of it wasn't. My head was throbbing, my hearing was temporarily gone. I was terrified. I remember thinking there was going to be another explosion, this time right behind me, and if I didn't get out of there right away, I was sure I would die. Panic rose up in me, thinking if I die, my boys would no longer have a mother. My instincts kicked in, led me away from danger, but straight to shame and guilt. Until that moment, my definition of resilience was of strength and bouncing back. I am strong, mentally tough, gritty. I chose to take on marathon running in the Ironman for the challenge. I've worked in the mental health field for 25 years. I am raising teenagers. I live a life of resilience. But I also fled for my own safety that day and didn't help anyone, despite being a professional helper for my entire adult life. There is no doubt that my resilience kept me moving forward despite everything I was feeling. But what ended up happening was that day by day, I was learning that it was virtually impossible to just bounce back. My push to be strong and deal with everything by myself was making me stuck. The loneliness could be overwhelming at times. You see, trauma has this insidious ability, and it gets into all the cracks of your being. For some victims, this ignites old wounds. For some, it triggers a loss of basic safety. For some, it's that inability to forget that moment of feeling terrorized. The inability to shake the feeling that something bad could happen at any moment. Anxiety, sweaty palms become a familiar experience. Walking around with your heart in your throat, with the hyper-arousal of ducking at a loud noise, and the hypervigilance and suspiciousness of people and crowds. And fear, the fear of being found out that you are not as strong as everyone thinks you are, and the fear that if you aren't strong, you'll crumble. All I know is that being superhuman was not going to be the answer, and my definition of resilience had to be reworked. Because trauma is an annihilation. And when you go through something that changes the core of who you are, what you learn is that sometimes you can't just go back. Survivors have a complex and complicated emotional experience that is so difficult to understand. Your family, your friends, the community, the nation, everybody comes together and holds you in regard and thought and prayer for a while, and then return to business as usual. But this is when victims begin the real fight. Psychologists define resilience as the ability to cope with crisis and stress, to return to pre-crisis status. But how can we be resilient? When I stopped trying to bounce back, it became really clear I had to go through the experience. Because no matter how hard you push it all away, what the world sees on the outside and what you feel on the inside don't match. Resilience was not just about being strong. It was about redefining the way I felt about myself. Resilience is self-compassion and forgiveness. It means having hope, coming to terms with difficult feelings, being flexible, adapting to what might help you. Connection is resilience. Breaking your silence with people who intimately understand your experiences is now and has historically been very healing, originating back with the Vietnam veterans. And while on this transformational journey, use the grit and the strength that you knew you had before this crisis ever happened. Resilience is complex and multifaceted, and we all have past experiences that we can draw from. Know your inventory of skills. Believe that you are not only capable of coming up against something completely unimaginable, but that you will emerge on the other side. And eventually you will cross this line from the life you lived before your attack fully into life after. Choose to be fully engaged in that process. Redefine resilience, reconstruct your belief system, rebuild yourself, and reemerge a changed version. This is resilience. We have to coexist with the reality that things out of our control are going to continue to happen. As they did on 9/11 in New York City and in Washington, D.C., in rural Pennsylvania, Oklahoma City, San Bernardino, Fort Hood, the Navy Yard, Columbine, Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, Parkland. The list goes on. Survival is a delicate dance between strength and vulnerability, highlighting that we are both resilient and fragile at the exact same time. Compassion allows victims to come to terms with the fact that we are now tasked with a challenge to transform, and the transformation will come with both incredible loss and growth, going through and coming out the other side. The marathon course in Boston has been the same for 122 years. After the bombing, they didn't cancel, they didn't pretend that it didn't happen. They had to redefine what it meant to run in that race and reemerged in 2014 with a new purpose. Never quit, never give up.